That was the answer. That was the answer. I'm already a
Culture
fan of Mike
matters.
Calhoun.
I like
That
this
was the
guy
answer.
already, man.
I
I can.
blew it.
He's
Wait,
got
do
good.
that
This
again.
guy's
No,
got
no,
good energy. I can tell
this
this
is
guy
the
has good
real
energy.
show. Keep talking.
Lock this. Lock. Let's give that another take, and this time I'll get it. I'll get there way faster.
Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guests, I want to tell you about the New Year's Eve Jubilee, which is where we are today. If you're listening to this, you're listening to history in the making. You're listening and observing and participating in something that is extremely important. They'll be talking about from generations to come, somewhere, some faraway place in some universe, or not at all. We will live forever together. And I want to introduce you to two of my great friends. Here's a quote just for this episode. The long game is long. That's hard sometimes.
Mm.
How committed are you, John Duffin? One of our guests that's joining us today is the one and only John Duffin, host of the podcast, Your Message Received. He makes sure it's received or get the hell out.
Boom.
Listen to episode
We
7.
send people over your house.
Dude,
I ain't that tough, so it ain't me. But we'll send somebody over, right? To snap some life into you.
listen to episode 752. By the way, it's no matter what you guys do, I'm going to finish this damn introduction. Listen to episode 752, one of our most popular episodes. It's called Quit the Day After Tomorrow, and episode 570, Quit Tomorrow, one of my favorite episodes. And we're joined by the one and only Mike Drop Calhoun, who's been not just dropping, but picking it back up all day for the New Year's Eve Jubilee. This is our
Mm.
second year running. And the purpose of this is to look at the past and project into the future with action. So we're talking about what our words are for 2024,
Mhm.
2025,
Mhm.
2029. Get back in your seats. John, Mike, meet John. John, meet Mike. Nice to see you. How you doing? And we'll see you first podcast.
Doing absolutely great. Mike Calhoun, nice to meet you, man. Absolutely a
Pleasure to meet
pleasure.
you, buddy. Where are you located?
I'm in Philadelphia, PA.
Oh, wow. We have
Where are
a
you?
couple from Philly today. That seems like a really valuable area to be in.
So one time, Jay Duran and I lived literally blocks apart. Jay had enough of that and then chose to move.
I was
So
just saying,
he was just tired of me stopping over the place and
I moved
borrowing
from
stuff,
John to Mike
right?
how
because
long have you
Mike's in
guys known each
Florida.
other?
How long, John?
Wait a minute, ask me that again.
How long have you guys known each other?
I want to say easy 5 years, and I'm going to guess longer than that. Maybe 6 years easy.
So is that where you
Metropolitan
moved from?
Philly.
Yes, I was at, and I'd love to hear John's rendition of this story. I
Mhm.
was at the Ritz-Carlton
Mhm.
walking around like this, making hot calls,
Mhm.
walking around in a velvet jacket, making hot
Red.
calls the way that Mike Calhoun sells. I was walking around that
Mhm.
way. I watched him sell. He walks like this. And I was walking like Mike Calhoun back and forth at the Ritz-Carlton. My net worth was negative 7,000, and I was selling. And I meet John Duffin for
Mhm.
coffee.
And we know each other back then from a mutual contact. George Beatty is the guy that I connected to
Wow.
Jay Durant, right? So we're at meeting the first time. Jay, I'm not going to ask you to get up and do that walk again, although I might because it was
I
great.
apologize for all
It
the
was
Don't,
it
don't,
was
don't, because
like a cartoon there. It was very animated, right? I wasn't
I
sure
have
when he was doing the walk like me whether that was a good walk or a bad walk.
All right, here's what I'll say. Here's my interpretation. Don't know, but here's my interpretation, which is right off the bat, it was definitely a good one. So, Mike, I totally checked Jay out when he got up to walk around at one point. Totally cruised him at
cheers.
one point, right? Totally cruised him, and it was like, right. I mean, we're in a hotel public lobby, so it's not weird or anything,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah. So, but it was very similar to that walk, and we just hit it off. man, we just hit it off. So it worked
That's
out great. It was a
awesome.
blast and fun. Yeah.
And so what do you do?
So I am a communications leader. So what I do is I help people I'm a sales coach, sales trainer. I help people to present better,
Now
and
I know
well, from
why.
my
I know
direct
why
experience.
the energy is so good. He
Ah.
understands. This guy understands communication at a level where he knows
Mhm,
that it's not what comes out of your mouth.
mhm,
It's everything that you're doing is communicating something at all
mhm,
times, and
mhm.
everyone is tuning you in or out at all
Ooh.
times. This guy right here,
Mhm,
Jay, the reason I like being on with you is it stretches me because you put these
mhm.
these type of conversations are what make me better. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Love it.
John,
Yes, sir.
what do you enjoy? What gift? I call it the gift shift because you don't sell
Mhm.
anything. You're
Right.
bringing something so good, you
Mhm.
want them to have it, right? So what is your favorite gift that you like to help others receive?
Mm.
Wow.
Good question. So it's peace of mind. So very often when I'm speaking with people, they're asking me something, coaching clients, or whether it's hosting or guesting on a podcast or whatever. Often it has to do with something that's troubling them. My problem, my situation, whatever the roadblock happens to be. Deal with the situation, don't know what to do. The meeting's tomorrow, or this is this afternoon, and they're jammed up. And so for me, there's a sense of, and it's one of my favorite things where, especially when it's a visual, where they will ask me something and you see the look on their face, and I'll make a suggestion or whatever, you know, and you just watch the way their eyes light up. So if I can give them that gift of feeling better to get through a situation, because in my heart, I believe most people can get through those situations unless you're jammed up. And then you want to add all sorts of other stuff to the situation. So for me, when I see the eyes go, like in a good way, when I see the eyes go and I see them in essence feel more, or I see them nod their head in agreement, or better understanding, it just makes somebody feel a little bit better. And sometimes it's all it is. It's just flipping a switch, you know?
And what type of products, platforms, or services are you? Does it matter, or are
Mhm,
you best with, say, services? You know, like
mhm,
consultation. You know, the intangible type of sale. You know,
mhm.
help me understand where
Yep.
your area of expertise is.
Thank you. So first off, if you would ask me that even a year ago, let alone 5 years ago. If you'd asked me that even years ago, I would say, oh, services, absolutely services. What I keep realizing is the answer is much closer to what you said at the beginning, which is everything. So I took on a consultation in 2024, uh, part of a roofing opportunity, selling roofing. So I'm not your prototypical roofing anything. Don't like the climbing up part. Don't like the getting dirty part. Don't like any of it, right? But I happened to be there and the opportunity happened to present itself. So I was there for a brief period of time. And we're in the sales training situation. And the whole thing was 2 weeks, right? And I don't say this to impress anybody other than the sense that I realized not only was the training very similar to what I deliver, it's very similar to what I've created. And so you're literally all of the things of easing someone's mind rather than that sense of I have to win the day, or you can only go with me, or that sort of thing. You don't have to overcomplicate things that much. So what I found is products or services. I come from a background of advertising sales. I spent over 25 years in executive television advertising sales, selling directly and navigating teams. So executive sales management too. So if you were going to say what was the one thing I feel most comfortable with, it was selling myself or teaching people to sell to television advertisers, digital streaming advertisers.
Let me just
that's my number one in terms of the lengthiest amount of time.
excuse me. You said the most difficult thing is selling yourself?
No, forgive me. No. What I said was that I would have told you before, oh, I'm television ad sales, that's where I was most comfortable.
Proficient, got it.
Well, most comfortable because I did it for the longest period of time. And the shortest period of time was the roofing consultation, which was 2 weeks and 1 day. And that feeling that I wasn't going to climb a ladder regardless of how much you were giving me, was that kind of won out. But so 2 weeks and 1 day of a direct product, 25 plus years of an indirect product or service, or anywhere in the middle. That's what I've come to realize. So no, it's directly what I'm saying is the skill set, the set of being able to solve a problem, really listen, get to know people, that sort of thing, so that you're having very direct communication.
What do you think the hardest thing is to sell? Jay, I might take this one over, buddy.
Why don't you take it over?
I like this guy.
I'd like to learn in this case.
No. I might steal you from Jay because I like you so much. Because Jay ran every single one of these all day. But so what and we've been doing this since 5 a.m. by the way, every hour.
I love this. I love this.
Yeah. I mean,
look at Jay's face. I love this.
I've been standing. I don't even use the restroom. He goes to the restroom. He's cheating. He goes to the restroom. You know what I do? I have one of these
bodily
right
function is
this.
Right.
Dude,
folks, I certainly hope
or
don't hope you're watching this as opposed to listening to this.
Well, when it's competitive,
Mike, hold up the garbage can. Get the garbage can. Here we go.
Yeah, please.
There you go.
You got to get the logo in there. Hold on. Rubbermaid.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, please. You were going to ask.
What do you think the hardest thing is to sell?
The hardest, well, the direct answer is something you don't know. Because if you can learn virtually anything, if you give yourself enough time, and if you give yourself the bandwidth to make certain you're buttoned up, you'll sell nothing if you don't know. And also, if you take something for granted, hey, I know that. Oh, I know that. I could do that in my sleep. You won't sell that either. And it doesn't matter how comfortable or fluent you are. But if you're ill-prepared or you didn't take the time to prepare, those are the hardest thing to sell. And what specifically that is, don't matter. It don't matter. It could be a can of paint. It could be medical, biopharmaceutical, you know what I mean? But if you didn't take the time to learn so that you can think on your feet and improvise.
You think a thorough knowledge of the unit or item or thing.
Yeah, and a thorough knowledge, I'll go one step further, does not mean you need to take a 4-year college, get a 4-year degree in what it is, but a working knowledge in terms of who you're talking to and what it is you're talking about.
If you know the product, platform, or service, right?
Right.
Like, let's just say you have a good knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Now, what's the hardest thing to sell?
Someone that you haven't prepared for, a total stranger.
Oh, somebody you haven't prepared.
Yeah, somebody. Exactly. So I was looking for it. Now I can't find it.
Not knowing the market.
Well, not knowing the individual, because you're typically speaking to an individual. And where your power comes from is in having some understanding.
Being able to meet them in the head.
That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
If you're ice cold, and it's one of those goofy things where I remember early on in my career, somebody would try to trip you up with in an interview, sell me this pen. And it's like, I almost didn't want the job when they would ask a question to me that was like almost like a dolt question. You know what I mean? Like, sell me this pen. I'm like, well, no. If I know you, if I've taken 15 minutes to get to know you prior, Google, LinkedIn, whatever the case may be. And I mean, obviously, there's no too long amount of time, but taking some time that you're not walking in ice cold and not walking in ice cold in regards to what it is you're offering, what that potential is. I feel like you can, in the conversation, in the listening, in the way that you ask questions, you'll
The
formulate
questions.
this ground that you'll
It's the
be able to
questions.
tread, you know?
So if you know the product and you know the market, or if you know the product and you know the customer,
Right.
now what's the hardest to sell?
Wait a minute. What's the hardest?
If you know the product and you know the customer, now what's the hardest to sell?
Sometimes value. So to
You
me,
hear this guy?
it's to
You
me,
hear
it's
this
value.
guy?
Because even when you know
Keep
somebody,
going.
my
Guys,
definition
keep
of
going.
value, my definition of value may be entirely different
He's
than
better than I thought he was.
you know. I'm loving Jay's face. That was my very technical response to Jay's facial body language.
Well, most people can't communicate the value.
One of my very favorite people, and the way that he communicates is with Jay, simply because of that it's so well versed. Here's what I love. Rando fact about Jay. One of the most book smart, learned people that I've ever encountered, especially considering how young the guy is also the common sense denominator. The great faces, the eye rolls, all that stuff that you're not just quoting chapters, you know, from Sartre. That it is that it's that common. Oh, you know it's coming. You know it's coming.
This is a good one.
Do you know how I knew that was a Sartre book? It's 75,000 pages. That's how I knew. I'm still seeing a therapist, Jay, from my high school years of philosophy and being in nothingness.
Dude, page 44. The dialectical concept of nothingness. It is still too soon for us to hope to disengage the meaning of this nothingness against which the question has suddenly thrown us. Anyway,
Okay.
I love this guy. So as you were, Mr. Calhoun, as you were.
So the funny part about that book is
Uh-huh.
it's such a mind trick,
Mm-hmm.
because on the very last page, it's a one-page summary of everything in the book that makes you think, if I would have just started with the end in mind, I would have never had to invest all that time.
Mike, that's freaking awesome. Now, I don't know that I ever got to the last page.
That's
Philosophy
the
was
thing.
not my highest grade,
That's a deep metaphor right there.
right?
I mean, think about that in life terms. I don't know that I ever got to the last page. Man. Hey, when should I quit this whole thing? When should I quit this deal?
What are we quitting? We don't quit.
We don't quit tomorrow. We don't quit the day after tomorrow. That's at least the 2 episodes Jay was able to walk me through, which were great. So we ain't quit, and we certainly ain't quitting on New Year's
What's
Day.
your word for 2025, John
Mhm.
Duffin?
My word is precision. And precision, as I'm realizing, is precision can be messy. And to me, one of the things that tripped me up more in 2024 was this sense of needing to be specifically ready, in terms of all the things I wanted to do and some of the things that I didn't, simply because I felt like, almost in a prissy sort of way, that I needed to be just so, you know? And
Are you a preparer?
Yeah, and you know what? Thanks for asking, man. I am a preparer. And one of the things that shifted for me over time, and it's not all great. Like I'll give an example where I used to I had a cockiness to me when things were rolling really well. I don't always now, but I had it. And it wasn't always like
Wow.
a deserved sense of cockiness. It just was. And one of the things that I had learned, especially breaking into the field that I talked about, was you just did stuff. If with me, that it you
John,
just did
John,
it.
it's totally forgivable when you're that good. It just creeps up on you. Like it's
Yeah,
fine.
well,
It happens to the best of us.
right. So here's what, like for me, Jay had asked me my word for 2025 earlier, and I said precision. And one of the things that I wanted to not get tripped up by this year was the sense that precision doesn't mean already. Precision doesn't mean perfection. And simply what it's going to mean for me is this, which is you just do stuff. You just do stuff. You just move. And the way that I'll be able to use precision is in measuring what I've done as opposed to measuring what I intend to do or, and that sort of thing. I know myself well enough to know this is one of the things I can be grateful for, which is I'm never going in random. You know what I mean? Whether it's a podcast interview, host or prep or whatever, I'm never going in with who are you again? Like I just wouldn't do it. Um, but
Wow.
in any sort of a client thing, I'll be more precise in a coaching or a speaking avenue. I'll be more precise by measuring how it went, what I can do better for the next round, how I can improve, and all of it will be based on recent and current experience. So that's to me how I'll be able to measure precision rather than precisely ready to go.
So precision,
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing these word things all day.
Yeah, yeah.
Precision has a lot of definitive words around the noun itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one that stands out the most out of the probably 15 that are here, what you're talking about is clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Boom.
when you're clear,
Mm-hmm.
when you're a professional,
Mm-hmm.
which goes along with being precise,
Yep.
you have clarity
Mm-hmm.
on your function, on your role, on the mission. Like it gives you the ability to perform without preparation
Mm-hmm.
because your precision is high and your clarity is high,
Mm-hmm.
which gives you a uh, it gives you performance without preparation, which means you are ready at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah, like coach put me in the game. Like you don't get ready, you
Mm-hmm.
stay ready.
Mm-hmm. I love the way you say that. It also gives me confidence so that when I'm speaking to somebody, whether it's in a one-on-one coaching situation or speaking with an audience, I am buttoned up so that I can improvise. I never am scripted. It's just my role. I feel like, regardless of who I'm speaking with, is that I'm buttoned up enough that I can focus directly on what you're saying. So when you talk about clarity in that regard, that's to me, clarity gives me confidence. It gives me freedom. And with that, I can stay with you rather than need to keep worrying about what the next bullet point is or worrying about, you know what I mean? What's the next clever thing I'm going to say? I'd rather stay in the conversation, and it's the confidence that of knowing that I can.
You know what I think the hardest thing to sell is?
What's that?
The intangible.
It ain't easy.
Think about
Creating
it.
stories around, an empty bowl or a full bowl.
Well, think about this. So you can go, what kind of car do you like?
So I have driven for the last couple of decades the same guy, like a lot of cars. The direct answer of what I have driven, a BMW Z4 convertible, two-seater.
Beautiful. Dude, do you love the Z8? Have
I
you seen the
absolutely
Z8?
do. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
mean, those are
absolutely,
rare.
I
Back in
do. I
2002,
absolutely do.
2003. Those are rare. But the Z4 is the best recent version of a Z8 you're gonna.
Fun and right, Mike. I've never even been inside of a Z8 yet, but I
Yeah.
mean, they certainly get my attention. Yet,
Straight James Bond.
love it.
Okay. Let's say the average person goes to Honda, picks out a $30,000-$40,000 car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing what you get for 30 or 40 grand these days.
Sure.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's unbelievable what they've
Mm-hmm.
crammed inside of that can, right?
Great choice of words.
Or I'm going to offer you consulting, or I'm going to offer you coaching, or I'm going to offer you a membership.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the buttons and features, and where I don't get to sit in it. It doesn't have a cooled or heated seat. It doesn't keep the wind off of my face while I'm cruising. Like, it's intangible. It's invisible. It's a thing that I don't even know if did I get it or did I not get it?
I
In
love
my
this.
world, the intangible
Mm-hmm.
is the hardest thing to sell because the deliverable is so hard to define,
Yeah, man.
right?
I love the way you say it. So I'll ask you, do you find that the difficulty in selling the intangible also could tie into, I've experienced this, and maybe you have or haven't, like the sense that what are the buttons that work for you may or may not work for the other person. And there's this sense of you needing to flail sometimes trying to guess what buttons really work for you, regardless of how adept you are of moving around a story. I've often guessed wrong. Have you ever encountered that?
So in my experience with giving people gifts is physical items sell with features.
Okay.
Right? Physical and features go together because they're always looking for, does it have the sunroof? Does it have the 22-inch wheels? Like, does it, that's why models work so well. You have the base, the mid-grade, the luxury grade, and like the performance, right? So in that world, the features work. They help to sell the product because it gives lines of delineation. And then on the intangible, in my experience, it's the intrinsic value, right? It's not, people will argue, well, it's not the feature, it's the benefit.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's the feature or the benefit. It's the straight outcome, right?
Yep.
So where are we gonna land? Because usually an intangible requires what's called a relationship. And not only, see, the thing about an intangible is it requires two investments. It requires the investment monetarily and the investment of time and energy, because they have to be involved. If it's coaching, boom, they got to be involved. If it's consulting, they've got to be involved. If it's membership, they've got to be involved. They're not investing a singular item. They're investing maybe three items. They're investing finance, they're investing time, and they're investing opportunity. They're investing attention. Like, it's such a difficult sale. Like the best of the best sell the intangible better than anybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The outcome aligning with their purpose, what I've found is most individuals buying an intangible don't really know where they're going. Like, they're not in alignment with their vision for themselves, right? So a lot of the times they're not buying because they actually don't know, is the outcome even aligning with where I'm going, right? You might get me to that outcome and I don't even know if that's where I want to be, right? So you're going to get me to an unknown destination and I don't know if I can get back. I think
I'm
the
with you.
secret to selling the intangible or giving the gift of a high quality intangible is to be able to, from an advisory standpoint, deliver them the value of a clear vision of their highest potential, their highest purpose. Like if they're going to receive some sort of coaching or consultancy, like how do we get in alignment with what they really want for themselves? Because I think a lot of people don't even have a list when they go to the grocery store, much a list for their life.
Because they just know. Because they just know. In spite of like they don't, but they just know that it's like, oh right, fruits, vegetables, I'm supposed to eat healthy. Oh, look, Pop-Tarts. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I think, and Mike, I'd ask you too a question in terms of your own experience that have you found that also it's not just the alignment as you're talking about, yeah, spot on, dead on, as of it, but also the timing. And that I have found for me that in terms of being a coach, an executive coach, and being, like I said, teaching people that there's a complete lack of clarity in regards like people sometimes need things immediately they buy an intangible like they're buying a very specific product because when you buy the specific product you get the features and or like when you're saying is it features or benefits, well you get them both the moment they hand you the keys or the moment, you know what I mean, you write the check and they give you the, you know what I mean, the flat screen or whatever. They get it. Whereas it's not just a soft sort of landing in regards to the subscription or the membership or what have you, but it's, I've got all these problems that I'd love for you to fix my weight. Do I, the person, my
Oh, the weight
dreams, I
loss.
need
That's
a
such a good
million
one.
dollars. I need, all this kind of stuff
I need funding.
and I need funding. Oh, and when do you need it by? Tomorrow.
Of course.
Um,
Well, actually, it was yesterday. I needed it yesterday.
I was just up
Do
for
you have a
this.
pitch deck? Well, I'm working on it.
Small business, or what if small business
hmm Right.
and per, what would that fall under? Is it health? Is it what does therapy fall under? Like mental wellness? What
hmm
is that? Whatever
hmm
Mental
designation.
health.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a
Yeah.
sense, what if small business and mental health had an inverse relationship as far as outcomes? And
hmm
Nietzsche said, "Be careful when casting out your demons, that you don't lose the best in yourself." One of our guests today, Christine Beckwith, the one and
Oh,
only,
sure. New book.
mentioned
Right.
how her fire went out, having been healed of her having been exorcised.
hmm
The demon, the demon had to be replaced with some other source of power. So
Wow.
my argument would be, and that, but that lull period where the demon was exorcised and there was absent a driving force of ambition,
hmm
that creates a lot
hmm
of that has an that can have a debilitating effect on a
hmm
business. Now, so where I'm going with this is we can ask ourselves philosophically, what if small business and mental health wellness
Right.
or mental health rather,
hmm
they have an they have an inverse relationship. Where I'm going with this, people that could use that help, they're unlikely to go to that place. So the secular priests are the mentors, the coaches, the
hmm
consultants, the
hmm
advisors. They're the secular priests. They're
hmm
going into the wild, whereas some animals at some point in the life cycle of business, they get out of the safari and they find themselves in a zoo. You don't want to be captured in a zoo. Be
mm
careful when casting out your demons, you don't lose the best in yourself.
mm
And what I'm trying to say here is mental wellness can have an inverse relationship with success,
Oh my God. That's a great
depending on the
perspective.
life cycle of the business.
Right.
as well as the small business psyche can and does have a debilitating outcome of a business as it goes from small
Hmm.
business to enterprise.
Hmm.
That's why in the CEO manual, I talk about the distinction between a founder and a CEO. The founder is the radical yes. The CEO must be an abominable no, or they're surrounded by yes people. At the same time, if it's too much no, it becomes too orderly, too bureaucratic, too top down, stifles innovation,
Hmm.
undermines the entrepreneurial spirit. So it's like the role of the CEO or the role of the leader, whatever
Right.
title, is a role of contradiction. Like it lives
Hmm.
it's nuance and paradox, and there are people that need to be around the president in their cabinet, so the president doesn't become a tyrant, but also
Hmm.
doesn't become a soaked fish and gets nothing done. And so I think a lot of the leader's job is to separate the wheat from the chaff and see which helpers are helpful ultimately. But
So Jay,
I
no,
yeah.
if that's so, question for you. So in terms of say
And by the way, this is an explore. This isn't dogma. I'm just.
no,
It's
no,
more of
just a
like
thought.
this is like exploratory for us to.
Mhm.
I unfortunately I read the last few pages of the. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't.
You know, I literally I can feel like a pain go through my shoulders every time you pull that book out. So that's something that I have to work out.
Mike's
And
right.
now
The
I
Don't look
want
answer's
at
you.
the
right here.
don't look
Mike's
at the
right. The
last
answer.
page. All the
Oh,
answers are on the last page.
this freedom to
I'm
choose
telling you,
things.
I'm
That's
on
right.
it.
Oh, it's right
I
here. Go ahead.
Actually,
No, but thank you. What I was going to ask you though was you're comparing like the inverse relationship, small business mental health, and then you're saying in the role of a CEO, whether it's the yes and or no, with it as an organization is growing from say small business to enterprise, that journey, you know what I mean? Because they don't just instantly go from one to the next. Would you think that having like would you keep the leadership team or those around the CEO small even though the organization is growing, or would you add more people so that everyone would have a little bit less to do and in essence be able to communicate more as it regards to the critical matters of having the organization grow and grow well? What would be to you? It's not an absolute, but would that be add more people? Would it be to keep it lean until you absolutely have to add more people? What would be your
Well, I
thoughts?
think that the more trust an organization has, the
Hmm.
smaller teams will naturally be.
Okay.
The less trust, that's why like middle management starts to get thicker
Hmm.
and thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. People above in the hierarchy aren't separating the wheat from the chaff. It kind of grows.
Hmm.
This was discussed earlier in the day about, um, a stultification of like, let's say,
Okay.
direct communication, like, hey, you're fired.
Hmm.
Hey, we don't need you anymore. So to answer your question, the size of a team, I think, is going to be relative to the degree of trust and mutual respect, which has a relationship with a lot of the things Mike was talking about.
Hmm.
Like part of the role of the CEO is to know, or even if they don't fully, to make believe. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Or
I'm being
no enough.
hyperbolic. No, no, they need to know, they need to come up with an idea of where we're going and
Hmm.
who we need and how to get there. And that comes more or less naturally. Everyone's different, right? What do we really need to be an entrepreneur? We need to take on risk
Hmm.
and just not quit. And then so to answer your question, that will have a relationship with the trust.
Hmm.
Because the more trust, what does that even mean? That means open feedback loops, but open feedback loops don't stay open. They close and they need to be reopened, and they close and they need to be reopened, and they close. That's why if you read enough literature, you'll see a lot of people come to the same conclusions. Ray Dalio's like his whole circular thing with principles, the famous hedge fund guy, He's
Yeah.
doing all these graphs about the
Mhm.
circle. He's got this book, famous culture book called Principles. He says something very similar to another theorist, Ishak Adizes out of Macedonia, who's like the Peter Drucker of the
Okay.
of Eastern Europe,
Mhm.
about like the life cycle of organization. So to answer your question, the more trust, the smaller, because each person impacts more people because their truth goes farther. If I say something to you, it'll get to more people the stronger our alignment is.
Right.
I say something to you, like as simple as if I say something to you and you're not listening, it's not getting to anybody. It didn't even
Right.
get to you. If I
What?
if I say something to
I
you, yeah,
missed that. I'm sorry. I was checking my email. Hold
exactly.
on.
No, but if I say something to you and you hear it and you're paying attention, you hear
Right.
it and you believe it, it might go 10 levels down. But if I say something to you and you're not listening, now there's, you, so, and then it becomes, well, maybe I'm not listening well enough to know that you're not. Shame on me.
And that
And
happens
if
only all the time.
That's why the
All
CEO
the time.
position is the linchpin of the culture because
Mhm.
and there's so many ways to mess that up. And I mean, and of course this
Well,
goes back to like their relationships, like outside that influence and inside that influence. And
so
I don't even know
you're
how
right
we
there.
got here, but yeah,
While you're,
we've got to end.
let me insert something while you're right there.
Please.
We've heard
And
the,
please close us out too.
okay,
Hey,
so
I can take a hint.
No,
we've heard the term win by design, not by default, correct?
Correct.
Right, Jay?
I have. Sorry, Brad was texting me, gonna do a little bit later. So looks like we're staying up later.
Okay. So win by design, not by default. And a lot of times I think what a CEO does is a great job of creating a product, platform, or service in the very beginning, but they are thinking about the value proposition to the customer and they're not thinking about the organizational value proposition to the team,
Mhm.
which is what supports the customer.
Mhm.
So if these founders were equally aware of creating their value proposition to their customer and their team at the same
Mhm.
time, there would be let's call it a product development and a culture development
Right.
simultaneously,
Mhm.
because what stops the progress of product development, sales, delivery, so forth, is lack of that culture and organizational development.
Mhm.
So at the beginning, if they were to design the belief system as much as they do the product for the
Mhm.
team, they would design a behavior as much as they do for the product within the team. Now the team believes a thing, behaves a way, and it becomes less about scaling the amount of people and more about scaling the accountability, because the only way you're scaling people is because you're able to scale accountability, right?
Right. Mhm.
And that is, and I'm the most guilty. I'll take full responsibility. I'm the most guilty for
Of.
totally screwing that up worse and longer than anyone.
Well,
Okay.
you certainly ain't alone.
But I wanted to do it better than anybody. So I did that.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
I screwed up better than anybody until now because I want to be the
Oh,
best. Like it's either going to be one end of the spectrum or the other. Now I've got to go to how do I do it better than anybody, right?
Mhm.
And the team, the organization, the organizational function down to the players on the team, regardless of your product, platform, or service, is part of the product,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If it's a service, they're delivering it. If it's a product, they're making it. If it's even what we talked about, it's a platform, they're developing it.
Mhm.
Like, like the attention to that is almost a reaction versus something that they're proactively seeking, right? They're like, oh, okay, oh, I've got to go hire this person. If we just did it simultaneously,
Right.
Or maybe even in the reverse order, let me go build the best team ever to do that, right?
To me, I think in terms of if there's anything else happening in 2025, it's the understanding that you can do these simultaneously. Have the culture work in terms of who, what, why for your internal team. Have it work in regards to the best, I don't know, pitch deck or whatever the case may be, but fully understand that they are most often two entirely different presentations. You are not explaining the pitch deck to the individuals within the organization as if they don't get it, or you need to teach them how to sell it. That to me, it's two different presentations. And you've ever seen those goofy diagrams where you have two circles and it's whatever the small one is where they intersect? Like, to me, the hope is that you are teaching the culture, which is entirely different than the features and benefits or intrinsic value, whether it's an intangible, and whatever the common ground is, the middle is what you teach first.
John, number one rule in sales is scarcity. The number one rule is scarcity. And right now, we're out of time.
Yeah.
We've got to go.
If you're listening to this podcast,
no.
if you're listening to this podcast, we love you. John, where can people connect with you in Instagram?
Easy. So it's John Duffin Media is where you'll connect with me, but the even simpler way, my website, which is duffinmedia.com, has all of my social media pages there as well too. So duffinmedia.com would be the easiest way to find me. Guys, Mike, Jay, thank you. This is absolutely a blast. The energy felt really good. Thanks for having me.
Mike, where can people find you?
I'm on MySpace. MySpace.com/Mike Calhoun. And the thing is I dominate it. There's like nobody.
I'll bet you do.
There.
Oh, yeah, you got to kill
it. It's really easy to find me. Yeah.
If you're listening to this episode, we're dedicating today to our dear friend, John Schwartz. Go listen to those episodes. There's 9 of them on the Culture Matters podcast. He was contributor, one of the 12 last year, New Year's Eve, episode 441. Take a look. Keep in mind what your word is for 2025. Mine is intensity. John's is precision. Mike's is value. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thank you both.